Adam, we got two Harvest Nano All-on-X arches in a puck here. You're milling these without a stabilizer bar, using Hyperdent. Just talk us through your strategy and your experience with getting two All-on-X arches in one puck with the Harvest Nano.
Yeah, so the I guess this is pretty revolutionary because we no longer have to use center frames, which saves an incredible amounts of material, and it allows us to basically nest whatever fits in the puck. And there's two ways to do it. One is the video that we see here, and then there's a different one as well. Both use the C clamp, which helps a lot, gives you a lot more space. We can go over the details and Hyperdent.
So I notice when you're using a C-clamp, that's what gives you the ability to mill through the green ring and nest one of those arches right up to the edge of the
Correct.
disc. Tell me about that. You just mill right through the plastic and in your strategy, nothing to worry about there? Or like what are you doing there?
Yeah, no, nothing to worry about as long as your tools are sharp and you have a machine that pretty accurate. The plastic doesn't phase the milling at all. The C clamp, you have a little bit more space, so it gives you like an additional 3 to 4 millimeters, which sometimes makes all the difference. And then also, if you need even more space, there's a different way to nest the arches.
Adam, here's two finished arches.
Mhm.
Talk to me about the resolution and the definition that you're able to achieve with your milling strategy and the Harvest Nano. These look beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, so the key is to use the right software, right? So we use Hyperdent, which really comes with many different types of strategies, especially for undercuts. The reason why we can get such good resolution is because um, it does identify undercuts, and it also is able to use the end mill, not just the tip of the end mill, but also the shank of the end mill. So if this was the puck and this is the end mill, most of them come and use the tip and they kind of go over like this. Hyperdent, I'm not sure other ones, but they can actually come to the side like this, and they can actually almost like shave the material, and that allows it to really get in uh, deep, especially with, like, as you can see, one of the arches is inside, one of them is outside, but both of them have the same amount of detail because we're able to use all of the end mill geometry instead of just a tip.
That's amazing. And with mill
Mhm.
strategy, how are you letting them dry? Like to be sure that they're completely dry before you sinter them.
Yeah, so, and also because the zirconia is so densely packed, I don't think I need as much drying as with other zirconias. So for an arch, especially one this thick, I usually leave it overnight, or I put it in an air dryer to speed things up. The air dryer, we put it at 150 Celsius. For something this thick, I'd probably leave it there for 45 minutes to an hour. Smaller crowns, 3 unit bridges, 15 minutes, or just leave them overnight. And then also, if your oven has a drying cycle, just put that in there as well, just as a safety precaution, and you should be good.
And I notice you're not using any stabilizer bars here.
Mhm.
Obviously, that allows you to, intermingle these arches. Tell
Yeah.
me about the accuracy of the fit of the Nano without using a stabilizer bar. Like, what's been your experience so far?
Yeah, so stabilizer bars, center frames, right? That's pretty standard. So everybody's been using them, but since uh, Harvest doesn't really deform, and I've tried all kinds of arches. I've tried the hybrid ones, that are very thin on the inside because you need to remove the material for the titanium. I've tried thick ones like this, and none of them have really been deforming. And that's, yeah. So far, I've done hundreds of cases by now, and not a single one has deformed, regardless of the shape and geometry.
Awesome. I'd love to take a look at your Hyperdent and maybe some tips and tricks there. So
Yeah, of
maybe let's
course.
go over and take a look at your software, your cam software that you're using.
All right. So if you can get the full geometry of your machine, that would help a lot because for edges like these, for collision, it helps. I know a lot of the mills out there have just the clamp, but not the rest of the machine. So putting that in here as well does help. So if you talk to your manufacturer, they'll be able to help you do that. Okay, so here we go. So the first thing I like to do is I like to come in here and this little lip that we have going on, make sure you put it, make sure you don't touch it, right? So for example, let's say if I put this too much out here, obviously, right, we're gonna cut that. And I've done this mistake many times where I put it right at the edge like this, you know, and I think I'm good.
So what do you typically go for, like a maybe a millimeter of safety distance, or
Yeah, like a millimeter and a half, just in case. So there you can kind of see the distance right there. Okay, so after you're done, you can kind of tell you have an entire half of the puck here.
oh yeah, plenty of
Yeah,
room.
to do the other half, right? So I would mill one of these, then I would go and mill.
How often are you able to get two arches in one puck using the Harvest Nano?
90% of the time I am, especially if I'm milling multiple pucks. Like these two right here are kind of big, so I wouldn't really put these two on the same puck. But what I will do is I will save this puck, and then if I have like a smaller arch, usually like the females are smaller, so I'll be able to fit a smaller in here. So I'll save these, and then I'll come back and reuse them for a smaller one. But even this big one, you could get away with it. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it doing it like this because of the overlap that happens here. You kind of want the center to stay together. But sometimes maybe you can do something like this and kind of play around with it and see if you can maybe have one side stronger than the
Kind of
other, you know. Hmm.
intermingle them a little bit
Yeah.
if you want to.
Hmm.
That's amazing.
Okay, so an important thing is to know your machine's maximum and minimum angles. So for this machine is 25 degrees. Over here on the top right, you can see the angles things are at. And then over here, you can also tell if you click on something what angle it's at in respect to how you've nested your right. So in here, this screw channel, the highest degree is 8.5, 7, 6, and it looks like we're good. Everything is under 25 degrees. So once we've done that, we'll come in here and put connectors. Like I said, we no longer need center frames. And let me just put a center frame in here so you can kind of see how much space it takes up. And kind of, it wastes. I mean, this doesn't look like much, but it is because now you're digging into this this center line right here. Because once you pass this center line, it's really hard to put
Yeah,
another arch in here, right? You also don't have this center meet anymore for the stability because the clamping force kind of starts from the center, goes all across, comes in here, right? So if you do have a little bit of zirconia in these areas, then you can easily put the majority of pucks on the other half.
that's awesome.
So, mhm. So we'll go ahead and delete this.
So in your workflow, have you completely eliminated using center frames, stabilizer bars?
Yeah, we no longer use them. Like I said,
That's
even
awesome.
this, which is, you can tell it's really thin, so the probability of deformation, and this is a real case, I've actually milled this, probability of deformation is really high, and even something as large and as thin as this came out great. Titanium fit right away, perfect install, no issues, flawless.
Amazing. That's super cool to see.
Then we got our connectors. I use the thicker connectors, 2.5 millimeters, just to be sure, especially if you're using more aggressive cuts. And let's go in here and start. You want to put them, this center line right here, this shows you like if the tool came from the top and from here, this is the line where the tools would meet, right? This is kind of like the undercut center line. So you can start from here. So I usually put 2 right in here and 2 more here. Okay. And then we start in here. Now, what I try to avoid is putting it in here, like right underneath where the screw channels are, because this is a very let's turn this on. This is a very sensitive, delicate area, so I try to avoid those. Kind of put them in between, like this.
Do you have a rule of thumb as far as like how far apart you typically go, or like how many, like every tooth or tooth and a half type thing?
Yeah, kind of like the setup we have here is pretty good, and you'll get to know your machine and see, and also your milling strategy to see how many you need. But what I've noticed is 2.5 millimeters is a pretty good amount for milling larger projects. And then also it eliminates the need for me to put any on the in the front right here. Right, so we'll keep this nice and clean and have a really nice finish. We
Oh,
keep
so you're
all
not
of
going to
them.
put any on the front?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, we
Okay,
don't
so
need
that
any in the
front
front.
will just be nice and detailed and no
Hmm.
no connectors there.
Yep. So next thing we do is we come in here and click on user defined areas, and we'll go ahead and turn on undercuts so we can see where does the machine not able to reach based on the direction and the milling strategy you're using. So all these red areas, we'll need to create custom direction so we can mill all this stuff. So what I like to do is I like to start at 0 degrees, 0, 0, 0. Now let's just make sure we have the right milling strategy because that changes the undercuts. So I like to start from the side, and I'm paying attention to my degrees over here. So as long as they're under 25, good. And what I'm trying to do is capture these 4 under 25. So this looks pretty good. Looks like I can get quite a bit of work done here. And let's put our initial dots in here. And I like to cover the entire tooth because what will happen is the machine will actually come in here and it'll just go across like this. So we want to give it a quite a broad area to work with so it mills everything well. So this line right here, these lines, where you put them are important. For example, if I put them, let's say like this, when it's done milling, you'll actually be able to see a small, tiny
Mm.
line in here where it was, you know what I mean, where it was removing
Yeah.
material. So unless you have one of those $1 million machines or whatever, it's better to just put them in a safer place like this, right? There we go. So now, and then same thing up here, I'm just putting them at the edges. There we go. Okay, so it'll go ahead and give nice crisp detail in these areas on this side.
And do you do like one in the anterior and two in the post, or sorry, one anterior and then one on each side of the posterior for your facials?
Yeah, so this one I'll actually do 90-degree milling where the machine will mill directly from the top. So these areas over here, we'll do canine to canine. I'll go like that. And you can tell this canine and here, they're overlapping, and that's okay. Because the one on this side will get the things in the back, and then this one will get all the stuff in the front. So this will give us, so I'll do the same thing on this side, and then I'll come in and maybe do like one large one from the back, kind of like this. So I'll just have it come across and just remove all this stuff. And then one more over here. Okay.
So Adam, you're milling 2 arches in a disc. What percentage of the time are you able to fit 2 All-in-X arches in one Harvest Nano disc? How often is it successful where you can get the arches nested properly?
I would say 90% of the time you're able to do it, maybe even 95, because if you save the other half, you'll eventually find an arch that's small enough to fit the other half. Because usually you'll have one big one and one small one. So it's pretty common. Especially with
Awesome.
no centering blocks, it makes it to where you can
Yeah,
get
and in
that.
this case, you're intermingling them, and
Yeah.
you kind of
Yeah, if you
orienting
position
the
it
arch
correctly.
to it, you positioning it to face out the C-clamp in a different way, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
amazing.
the no longer having to use center frames is what makes this happen. This is like the key.
Awesome. Well, Adam, thank you. Appreciate
Of
your
course.
help, and look forward to chat more about All-in-X and Nano as we keep going.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate it.
All right, buddy. You take
All
care.
right. Have a good one.